I was standing out on my back porch here in Charlotte this morning, just watching the humidity start to rise off the grass. It's that time of year when the air feels like a wet wool blanket before the sun even gets halfway up. I had my coffee in one hand and my little weekly pill organizer in the other. You know the one. It's got the little plastic doors for every day of the week. MTWTFSS. For a long time, I looked at that little box as my shield. I thought that as long as those doors were empty by the end of the day, I was doing my part. I was being a good patient. I was being a man who took care of his business so he could stay around for Gloria and the grandkids. But lately I've had to confront a hard truth that kept me up more than a few nights. I realized that for over 10 years, I was falling into a silent trap. I was taking a pill that everyone told me was safe, something I could buy right off the shelf at the drugstore down the street, and I had no idea it was acting like a slow-moving storm inside my own heart. Right now, there are millions of us over 60 who are doing exactly what I did. We're following the instructions on the bottle, we're trusting the system, and we're quietly raising our risk of a heart attack or a stroke every single morning. We think that because a doctor wrote the name on a pad, or because it's sold without a prescription, it's been cleared for a body like mine. But a body at 72 doesn't work like a body at 35. Today I'm going to share 3 specific things that changed everything for me. First, I'm going to reveal the 5 most common medications that turn into silent toxins once you cross that 60-year mark. Second, I'm going to explain why the testing gap means most of what we're told about safety doesn't actually apply to us. And third, I'm going to show you the one simple tool I carry in my pocket now that ensures I never walk into a pharmacy trap again. You don't want the first real warning to be an emergency room visit. Control starts with what you stop normalizing. And it's time we stop normalizing the idea that every pill is our friend just because it has a label. I spent nearly 40 years working in public transit. I started out behind the wheel of a bus, navigating the city streets when they were still quiet in the pre-dawn hours. And eventually, I worked my way up to supervisor. When you run a fleet of vehicles, you learn that every engine has a life cycle. A bus with 500,000 miles on it can still run perfectly, but you can't treat it like a brand new coach fresh off the assembly line. You have to change the filters more often. You have to be careful about the type of fuel you use. You have to listen for those little rattles that a younger mechanic might ignore. My health is no different, but for a long time I didn't realize my own filters, my kidneys and my liver, weren't processing things the way they used to. I discovered that there is a paradox at the heart of modern medicine for seniors. The paradox is that the medications meant to keep us stable can often be the very things that make us unstable, because they were never tested for a body that has 70 years of miles on it. My daughter Danielle, she's an assistant nutritionist, and she's always looking at the fine print for me. She's the one who pointed out that most drug trials are done on people in their 30s and 40s. People with perfect kidneys and no other health issues. That's not me. And if you're watching this, that's probably not you either. Let me explain why this matters using the language of the garage, because that's how I finally understood it. Think about your kidneys and your liver like the filtration system of a massive transit terminal. When that system is young, it can clear out exhaust and debris almost instantly. But as the years go by, the grates get a little tighter. The pumps move a little slower. When you put a heavy medication into a 70-year-old system, it doesn't just pass through. It lingers. It sits in the bloodstream, building up like a backlog of buses that can't find a terminal. This backlog is where the toxicity starts. The first medication that nearly caught me off guard is one almost all of us have in our cabinets, NSAIDs. I'm talking about ibuprofen, naproxen, those pills we reach for when the knees start to ache after a day in the garden, or when the back gets stiff from sitting too long. We think they're harmless because they're over the counter, but inside an older body, those pills tell your system to hold on to sodium and water. It's like putting a kink in a garden hose while the faucet is turned on full blast. Your blood pressure spikes, and your heart has to pump twice as hard to push through that resistance. In a heart that's already worked for 7 decades, that extra pressure isn't just a number, it's a risk of a blowout. I remember a man I used to work with, a dispatcher named Arthur. Arthur was a good man, steady as a rock, but he had bad hips from years of standing on those concrete floors at the terminal. He kept a big bottle of ibuprofen in his desk drawer, and he'd pop a couple every few hours just to keep moving. He told me, "William, it's just for the aches. It's nothing serious." Arthur did everything else right. He watched his sugar. He walked his dog. He never missed a Sunday service. But one afternoon, right in the middle of a shift change, Arthur's face went pale. He didn't have chest pain. He didn't have the elephant on the chest feeling people talk about. He just felt a sudden, massive spike in his head, and then his left side went numb. He had a stroke right there in the dispatch office. It wasn't because he was reckless. It was because his body couldn't handle the constant pressure of those quote-unquote safe painkillers. Seeing him like that, a man who was so careful, it made me realize that pressure rarely rises alone. It rises with the habits we ignore. His kidneys had slowed down, the medication built up, and his blood pressure finally hit a breaking point that his arteries couldn't sustain. Then there's the second group, the diabetes medications like glyburide or glipizide. These are the older workhorse drugs. They're like an old fuel regulator that's lost its sensitivity. They force your pancreas to dump insulin regardless of whether your blood sugar is actually high or not. When you're younger, your body can adjust to that sudden drop. But for us, a sudden drop in blood sugar, what they call hypoglycemia, isn't just a dizzy spell. It's a cardiac event waiting to happen. I felt that shakiness myself, that cold sweat when you feel like the floor is moving beneath you. When your sugar drops that fast, it triggers a fight or flight response in your heart. It starts racing, trying to find energy that isn't there. For a heart over 60, that sudden, irregular rhythm is like trying to redline an engine that's already hot. It can lead to an arrhythmia that you can't come back from. Many of us don't even feel the warning signs anymore because our nerves have dulled with age. We're walking around with a heart that's struggling to find its rhythm, and we think we're just having an off day. And we have to talk about the electrical system. I remember working on the old electric trolleys when I first started in transit. If the wiring was frayed, the whole car would jerk and spark. Our hearts have an electrical system too, and there's a whole class of antidepressants, the older ones like amitriptyline, that act like a short circuit for seniors. Doctors sometimes prescribe them for sleep or nerve pain, but they interfere with the heartbeat's timing. They cause something called QT prolongation. Think of it like a signal light that stays yellow for too long. Eventually, the traffic from both directions is going to collide. In a younger heart, the wiring is insulated and strong. In ours, that interference can lead to a sudden stop. Even some of the common allergy pills, the ones like Benadryl that we take to help us sleep, do the exact same thing. They block the chemicals that keep our heart rate steady. We take them to rest, but we're actually putting our heart into a nocturnal storm. The evidence isn't just something I read in a textbook. It's something I see in the eyes of the men I grew up with. Research shows that regular use of those common NSAID painkillers increases the risk of a heart attack by 50% in people our age. That's not a small margin. That's a coin flip. And when you add in something for a cold, those decongestants with pseudoephedrine, it's like pouring gasoline on the fire. Those cold medicines work by shrinking the blood vessels in your nose, but they don't stop there. They shrink the vessels everywhere, including the ones that feed your heart. I've seen neighbors here in Charlotte end up in the hospital with a blood pressure of 200 over 100 because they just wanted to clear their sinuses before bed. They had no idea that one sinus pill was a silent trap for their heart. When I looked at my own pill organizer, I realized I had 3 of these categories sitting in there at once. I was taking something for my joints, something for my allergies, and a cold pill when I felt a sniffle. I was a polypharmacy case, and I didn't even know the word for it. So what did I do? How did I get back in control? I didn't just throw everything in the trash. That's dangerous. You never stop a prescription without talking to the man who wrote it. But I started what I call my golden rule of health. Every 3 months, I sit down with my pharmacist, not just the doctor, but the pharmacist, because they're the ones who truly understand how chemicals talk to each other. I bring a single sheet of paper. On that paper, I have every single thing I put in my mouth. The blood pressure meds, the vitamins Danielle gives me, the ibuprofen I used to take, even the herbal teas. I ask him one question. Is this combination still safe for a 72-year-old heart? That one conversation changed everything. I swapped out the ibuprofen for gentler ways to manage my hips. I moved away from the old allergy pills and found ones that don't mess with my heart's rhythm. I learned to use saline sprays for my nose instead of those stimulant-heavy cold pills. I started noticing the difference within weeks. That constant dull thrum I felt in my chest, that feeling of being on edge even when I was sitting in my recliner, it started to fade. My blood pressure numbers, the ones I track every morning, they started to settle into a steady, predictable rhythm. I felt like I was finally driving the bus, instead of just being a passenger in a vehicle that was heading for a ditch. Gloria noticed it too. She said I stopped graying out in the afternoons. I had more presence when I was playing blocks with the grandkids on the floor. I wasn't just surviving my medications anymore. I was actually living my life. I realized that my body didn't need more chemicals. It needed better management of the ones it already had. Control starts with the list you keep in your pocket. Most people wait for a scare before they take this seriously. They wait for the chest tightness or the sudden numbness before they question what's in their pill organizer. I'm telling you this because I want you to be the one who acts before the siren starts. I'm not a doctor. I'm just a man who has seen too many good people fall because they trusted a system that wasn't designed for their age. My son Marcus, he's always reminding me that I have a responsibility to be here, to be the anchor for this family. And I can't be an anchor if I'm letting silent toxins erode my foundation. Time is the one thing we can't get more of, but we can certainly choose not to waste it on risks we don't have to take. I'm still here, still moving, and I'm still watching the road. This morning, after I finished my coffee, I went for my 3-mile walk around the neighborhood. I felt the sun on my face and the steady beat of a heart that isn't being stressed by unnecessary, safe pills. It's a peace of mind you can't buy at a pharmacy. It's the peace of mind that comes from knowing exactly what is going into your system and why. I'm going to keep updating my list, and I'm going to keep asking those hard questions at the pharmacy counter, because my heart has been working for me for 72 years, and I owe it a little bit of respect. I want you to do the same. Get that piece of paper. Write down your list. Take it to someone who can help you see the traps. I'm William Brooks, and I'm still right here, still learning, and I'll be here next time we talk. I can hear Danielle pulling into the driveway now with the kids. I better go see what she's got in those grocery bags before she tries to sneak more kale into my dinner. We've got a long day of playing ahead of us, and I plan on being ready for every minute of it.